Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of August 2013, coming to you with a knife review. A Hall of Fame knife review. I feel a little bit like, Jeremy Schaap interviewing Jack Nicklaus, or like Colby Donaldson analyzing the career and critiquing the shooting of Jerry Michalak or Tom Knapp. We're going to talk about the outstanding Hall of Fame quality Kershaw 1760 Skyline. What a blade. This particular offering, born in, June 2008. Let's see, guys, if you can follow your calendars backwards. June 2008, this knife was born, probably stayed on the shelf for a few months. And then sometime around the end of 08, maybe the first part of 09, a young YouTuber named Rob saw a review by another legend, YouTube legend, nothing fancy. And I bought this knife. Pretty nice for a 4.5-year-old, don't you think? Well, there's a reason for that, and I will get to it. But first of all, I want to talk about what it is, who makes it, and how they make it, what they make it of. You've all heard this, but let's go over it real quick anyway. The Skyline is manufactured by Kershaw in the United States of America. Yes, it's a U.S. produced Kershaw. That means it's probably got a Sandvik steel. This one does. Now, this is an early Skyline, so it is in Sandvik 13C26. I want to talk about that steel a minute because it's pretty perfect for this application. 13C26 is a steel developed by Sandvik for razor blades and surgical blades. It is designed to be ground to an extremely thin edge, be very tough, have a very fine carbide structure, and be pretty wear resistant and pretty hard. They recommend it be sharpened between 55 and 62 Rockwell on the C scale. My experience with Kershaw's 13C26 is that it's probably near the bottom of that scale, probably around 57, 58 maybe. Why is that such a good steel choice for this application? Well, because this is pure and simple, guys. An everyday carry knife, a utility blade. For someone who is going to do lots of fine work and needs a knife to be very sharp. It is not a prying blade. It's not a screwdriver. It is a cutter. Let's move along the statistic scale now. We know what steel it is. We know where it's made. We know who made it. The blade length, 3 1/8 inches. I've seen this called a spear point. I would really call it a modified drop point. Although I guess the spine profile and the edge profile are pretty close, and the point's kind of in the middle, which kind of indicates spear. If you look at the way it's ground, hollow ground, same breadth all the way down the blade, terminating at the point, a little drop in the spine. It's a drop point in grind and profile, but I guess spear point in dimension, sort of. Anyhow, blade stock, about 3/32, probably not quite 100 thousandths. Hollow ground pretty deeply from about 2/3 of the breadth of the blade, and fairly thin behind the edge. Not super thin though. I would guess 15 thousandths maybe. Tip is super fine, as I showed you just a few seconds ago. Handle length 4¼ inches overall length, 7 3/8. Weight, 2.3 ounces. 2.3 ounces. Weighs nothing. And look at all that cutting edge. A 3 1/8 inch blade, and look where the end of the handle is, and look where the cutting edge starts. It is all cutting edge. Handle material is G10, and it's medium traction G10. After 4 years, mine still has a pretty good amount of grip. Back to steel for a second. Current offerings of this knife are in 14C28N Sandvik steel. Here's the difference, as best I can tell. A little lower carbon content in 14C28N, a little bit more chromium content, nickel added. The objective was to quiet the complaints about 13C26 staining, spotting, rusting, which it does, especially when a bead blasted finish is employed, which opens lots of pores in the steel and lets moisture sort of lay there and do damage. So along the line, I think about 2010 or 11, Kershaw changed Sandvik products. I went to 14C28N. My experience says 14C28N is not quite as good a performing steel as 13C26, but it does provide more corrosion protection. And a knife like this, you know, we're really not looking for ultimate performance, but it's kind of nice that it wouldn't rust. Not a bad choice, but I'm glad mine is in 13C26. What are our carry options with this knife? Well, we have tip down, tip up, right side, and no left-hand carry. That explains a couple things. First of all would be why I have this little pigtail lanyard made out of 3/32 orange tether cord. When I carry this knife, I carry it in pocket. I am a lefty, as most of you know, and I gave up trying to clip this knife backwards and having the point stick up in my hand, and tip up was ridiculous in the left pocket because when the hand entered the pocket, it did so right over this point. Even right-handed, it has to enter right over this point, and the flipper, so I throw it in my pocket and I look for this little orange lanyard. If it's not in my pocket, this knife rides in my bug out bag, and it is what the steel was designed for. It is my medical knife in my bug out bag. I love the knife. I love its performance. I love its size and weight, especially the cutting capability for that size and weight. But it's just not a great carry knife for me unless I want it in the pocket. So I've done some things to it. If you notice, I bet you do, there's quite a bit of shiny edge there. For a thinly ground blade, that bevel is pretty broad, don't you think? Well, that's because mine is sharpened at 13 degrees per side on the secondary bevel and 18 degrees on the micro, and the micro is very slight. Basically just enough to knock the burr off the secondary bevel. That's why you saw what you saw at the beginning of this video. It is probably the sharpest, best cutter in my collection, and that's why it's my medical knife. If I need to do field surgery, this is what's coming out. I've got the tip terminating in an extremely sharp point. And will it slice flesh? I know it will, because checking the edge, it wants to dig right into my fingers. Okay, let's move along. Now you know why it looks the way it does and what I do with it. For most of you though, most of you right-handers, really, really good EDC blade. Let's talk about the deployment method. As you can see, it is a flipper, and kind of an early flipper. And it's more of a build up some tension and push down flipper than it is a pull back flipper. However, that was a pull back deployment. That's kind of funny. I watch a lot of YouTube knife videos, as you guys might guess, and I see a lot of people with very expensive mid-tech and custom knives complaining about how they flip. Well guys, here's a $40 Kershaw with no wrist. I can make it open every time. It's not that hard to design a flipper, it's really not. Now it is a thumb stud knife, and I say that with an asterisk. If you're left-handed, what appears to be a thumb stud is actually a closed position blade stop. It lies right on the liner. You're not going to deploy that knife with your left thumb. Just not going to happen. Even if you move the clip for tip-up carry, there's no way to get in there. Right-handed, you've got a little bit of room. You can deploy that knife with a thumb stud. Don't know why you would, because if I do carry this knife, I walk around flipping it all day long. Now how about this mechanism? It is a liner lock. And you know, this is where this left-hander is just going to bow to the knife maker, because it weighs 2.3 ounces, and part of the reason it weighs 2.3 ounces is because on the left side of the knife, or the right side if I'm holding it bottom up like this, the frame is the G10 handle scale. The liner is only on the opposite side to facilitate the liner lock. The pocket clip mounts into that liner. There's nothing to mount the clip to for left-hand carry. You know, if they added another liner, the width of the knife would have gone up. It wouldn't be so pocketable. It probably would have gained, you know, 3/4 of an ounce, and it wouldn't be the Skyline anymore. Maybe it would have been nice if they made a lefty version for me, but they didn't. So that's the locking mechanism and the deployment method. Let's talk about the pivot now. Remember, this is a very light knife, although it's got kind of a big blade for its size, don't you think? The mechanism is a very robust pivot. The screw itself takes a T10, and then the female side has the normal, and you can't see it because it's buried under the clip, but it has that hex head that nests into the G10 that keeps it from spinning, and it's a pretty large diameter pivot. I didn't measure it, but it's not like, you know, it's not like a pin. It's pretty robust, and the washers, don't know if you can see them. I'll try to come in and get a shot of them for you. They're pretty thick. They're, oops, sorry guys, hit the tripod. Pretty thick, of fairly large diameter, and they are phosphor bronze. Lockup, although it is, it's past 50% on my knife at 4 years of age. It's really not as far as it looks though. It's probably at about 70%, and it's been there forever, and it's just not moving. There's not a lot of tension on that lock bar. Not much wear has occurred. It probably was over 50% new, and if you look, there's a lot of strength there because the blade tang is almost in a straight line with that liner. The forces are going straight back pretty much. I have no issues with this lockup. Remember, 2.3 ounce knife, less than 100 thousandths blade stock. I have one hand out on the tip, one hand on the handle, and I'm torquing on this thing pretty hard. Can you see or hear any blade play? Let's go up and down. There's nothing. Well-made lightweight knife, guys. I mean, well-made. And this is after 4 years of use. I don't know if any of you have some of these Chinese Kershaws that are made nowadays, but I worked on an Oh-So Sweet for one of my customers a month or two ago, and the knife is maybe a couple years old, getting its first sharpening, and it was just falling apart. The hardware was horrible. A screw had fallen out of it. All the threads fit really loosely. Just not a well-built knife, and this thing's a little tank. It just is. For what it weighs, it's just amazing. What do you guys think of the butter knife pocket clip? I don't really love it on a knife this small. It sort of dominates the whole side of the knife that you mount it on. It is far too strong for a knife that weighs 2.3 ounces. It's just not aesthetically pleasing, and it's a pocket ripper. They could have got by with something much more svelte. I mean, that thing is tight. But this was the prevailing Kershaw clip in 2008, 2009, and really still is for their American-made stuff. It will hold a knife to a pocket, no doubt about that. But man, it just seems like with the neat lines of this knife that they could have done something just a little nicer, couldn't they? Now let's talk about ergos. They are amazing for a knife this small. I mean amazing. Remember, 3 1/8 inch blade, 4 1/4 inch handle, and I've got all 4 fingers on there pretty easily. The index finger and thumb just pinch beautifully and securely on the spine and the finger choil area. The flipper acts as a finger guard, as most flippers do. As thin as it is, and as short as this distance is here from spine to the choil, the knife does not ever want to turn in my hand. It works as well in a hammer grip, although, well, I've got a bad knuckle, but if I were right-handed, that's a pretty secure grip. Is it easy to choke up on? Well, there's no forward choil, and I would caution you to really put your finger there, especially on this one. But in a pinch grip, no problem at all. If you're doing super fine work, no problem at all in a pinch grip. What if we go reverse grip? Excellent. They just, Kershaw really maximized a small amount of real estate on this knife. Kind of an interesting handle shape, isn't it? Doesn't look like it would be as comfortable as it is, but it's very comfortable. For around $40, if you are a right-handed person, well, most of you guys probably already have this knife, don't you? If you don't, gosh, go get one. They make them in several varieties now. They even came out with a fixed blade version. Oops. What does it compete with? Well, I guess does it compete with a Spyderco Delica? Yeah, it does. And you guys know I love my Spideys, but you're not going to hear me say this about a Kershaw versus a Spyderco very often, but if you are right-handed, for less money, the Kershaw Skyline is a far superior knife to a Delica. A lot better cutter, about the same weight, much stronger mechanism. If you show me a Delica without blade play, especially vertical blade play, I'll buy it. Pretty hard to do. Even side to side with the Delica 4 with liners and torque screw construction and phosphor bronze washers, they have blade play. I've had a couple of those things. I could not adjust the side to side play out without binding the knife. I don't love them. They're not as good a knife as this. And until they came out with the full flat ground Delicas, they weren't near the cutter that this one is. Maybe still aren't. You guys have probably seen me review a few Kershaw knives by now. Other than their anti-lefty prejudice, you're not hearing me come up with anything bad to say about this knife, because I can't. I don't even mind carrying this for EDC not clipped to my pocket. I'm fine on the days I carry this thing with it just floating around in the bottom of my left front pocket with my little orange lanyard to grab onto. What a blade. Guess what, guys? Because of that one issue, that consequence of my left-handedness, this is going to be a contest prize. Yes, my beloved Skyline, I'm finally just going to accept reality. It wasn't made for a left-handed person. So, my 1,000 subscriber contest, which is coming up, within a couple weeks, is going to feature this knife with its, by the way, perfectly executed sharpening choil. Would you look at that? Nobody gets that right anymore. But anyway, I'm not sure what the rest of the prizes are going to look like, but this will be one of them. And yes, it is sharp. One of the reasons I put this edge on, and I just freshened it this evening, is that I wanted whoever gets this knife to really be able to experience the best I can do in sharpening. And let me get the fingerprints off. There, that's better. I just love this steel. What an edge it takes. So stay tuned, boys and girls. There's going to be a chance to win this Kershaw Skyline coming your way, and I'm going to enjoy sending it out. Hall of Fame knife review in the book. Not very short. Sorry, guys. No, I'm not. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the word is sharp.